Hello, my dear students. This is Hina Kausal and welcome back to the class.
Now let's discuss about Coulomb's law. Now what is this Coulomb's law? This is a statement which was found experimentally. It was determined by a scientist called Charles Coulomb in around 1785, I guess, I'm not sure, around 1785. He used a torsion balance to measure the electrostatic force between 2-point charges. What do I mean by point charges, or when do we refer charges as point charges? If the size of the charges is negligibly small than the distance of separation between them, right? Then we can refer those charges as point charges. So basically, this law is a quantitative statement about the force of attraction or repulsion between any 2 point charges, right? According to this Coulomb's law, what does it state? It states that the electrostatic force of attraction or the electrostatic force of repulsion between any 2 point charges, it may be negative positive, or it may be negative negative, or it may be positive positive, right? So whatever may be the type of the charge, so the force of attraction or repulsion between these 2 charges will always be directly proportional to the product of the magnitude of these charges, and also it will be inversely dependent on the square of the distance between them, and it acts always along the line joining the 2 charges. Fine. This is the statement of the Coulomb's law. Let us try to understand it in even simpler way. Mathematically, let us try to understand what is this Coulomb's law, right? According to the Coulomb's law statement, what it states in the first sentence, it has mentioned the force of attraction or repulsion between any 2 point charges. Here I have considered, let us consider Q1 and Q2 are the 2 point charges which are held at a distance r. Fine. So now, according to the statement, the force of attraction or repulsion will be directly proportional to the product of magnitude of these 2 charges. Mathematically, it can be written as F. F indicates force is proportional to the product of the magnitude of the 2 charges. Product of the 2 charges is Q1 and Q2. Let us consider, since it is magnitude, I have considered the modulus of these 2 charges. So let us consider that as equation number 1. Now, the second sentence of the statement states that the force of attraction or repulsion will be inversely proportional to the square of the distance between these 2 point charges. Mathematically, it can be written as F is inversely proportional. Inversely proportional means 1 divided by r square. So let us consider that as equation number 2. Now when we combine these 2 equation number 1 and equation 2, we can write it as F is proportional to magnitude of Q1 and Q2 divided by r square. Now let us consider this as equation number 3. So now if we remove this proportionality, the equation becomes F is equals to K into modulus of Q1 Q2 divided by r square. So this let us consider this as equation number 4. Here you can observe this term K. K is the proportionality constant which is equal to 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught. In vacuum, if we are considering these 2 point charges are held in vacuum, then this K value will take it as 1 divided by 4 pi epsilon naught. Pi value, you know, that is 3.14, and this epsilon naught is permittivity of free space, that is called as permittivity of free space. Now if we substitute this value of K in this equation number 4, then this equation 4 becomes F is equals to 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught Q1 Q2 divided by r square, where this whole term, that is the value of this K, after substituting the value of pi and as well as epsilon naught. Epsilon naught value is 8.85 into 10 to the power of minus 12 Coulomb square per Newton per meter square. Okay. When you substitute this value and also the value of pi, that is 3.14, the value of this whole K will become 9 into 10 to the power of 9 Newton meter square per Coulomb square. Okay, so instead of writing this whole term, you can replace this whole term 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught by 9 into 10 to the power of 9. Okay, so F is equals to 9 into 10 to the power of 9 Q1 Q2 divided by R square. Suppose in case instead of vacuum, if the two charges are placed in some medium, right, then this epsilon naught, what I mentioned as permittivity of free space, will be replaced by epsilon. Epsilon here is referred as absolute electric permittivity of dielectric medium, whichever medium it is been held, so that medium we have to consider. So this is how we can explain mathematically the statement of Coulomb's law. One more important point you should remember is about this force constant is it depends on two factors. One is that it depends on the type of units you are using. Okay, and the other thing is it depends on the type of medium where the charges is been held, whether it is vacuum or whether it is any certain medium like air or glass or something. Fine. So basically this force constant will depend on only two factors. Let us have a look at the vector form of Coulomb's law. Since the electrostatic force is a vector quantity, so it's good to learn how the Coulomb's law can be represented in vector form. To understand Coulomb's law in vector form, let us assume we have considered 2 point charges in vacuum, that is Q1 and Q2. From the origin, let's assume R1 is the position vector which will represent the position of point charge Q1, and R2 is the position vector which will represent the position of point charge Q2, right? Then the force which will be acting on this point charge 1, which is due to the point charge 2, the force which is experienced by this point charge Q1 due to the second charge, is given by this equation. F12 will be equal to 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught Q1 Q2 divided by R square R21 cap. Now what is this R21 cap here? R21 cap is the unit vector. Okay, this is the unit vector over here, which will be directed from the charge 2 towards the charge 1. Since the force will be towards the charge 1, acting towards the charge 1, therefore the unit vector represents the direction of the force which will be acting or directed towards charge 1, right? And as you can see, I have denoted this force in vector form by writing an arrow mark above the letter. That is how usually you have to use the vector notation. Fine. Similarly, if I have to mention the force which is exerted on the charge 2 due to the charge 1, right? So the force which is exerted on the charge 2 due to the charge 1 will be given by this equation. Vector of F21 is equals to 1 over 4 pi epsilon naught, that is the force constant, Q1 Q2 divided by R square, the product of these two charges and the square of the distance between them, and R12 cap. What is this R12 cap? It is the unit vector which will be directed towards the charge 2, right? Which will give the direction of the force which will be exerted towards this charge 2, right? So this is simply a unit vector which gives the direction of the force which is exerted on the second charge, right? Now since these two unit vectors are in opposite directions, therefore what we can write? We can write R12 cap is equals to minus R21 cap. Since this is in opposite direction towards this, these two unit vectors are in opposite direction, so this can be written like this. So if we substitute this value in this equation, instead of writing R12 cap, we can replace it by minus R21 cap, right? So when we replace it, that equation becomes F21, vector F21 is equals to 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught Q1 Q2 divided by R square into R21 cap. If you compare this equation F21, vector F21 and as well as F12 vector, both the equations right hand side terms are same, which means we can write it as vector F12 is equals to vector F21 with a minus sign, because this quantity F12 R12 cap is replaced by minus R21 cap. If you analyze this equation, these electrostatic forces are agreeing with that of Newton's third law of motion. So according to Newton's third law of motion, what it states, it says for every action there is equal and opposite reaction. So that statement agrees here with that of electrostatic force, right? So one more important thing you should note here is the product of these two charges, say Q1 and Q2, if it is greater than 0, it means if the charges are of same type, that is plus plus or minus minus, then the force exerted between these two charges will be, the nature of the force will be a force of repulsion. Fine. Say suppose if we have considered the charges of different types, negative charge and a positive charge. In that case, what will be the Coulomb's law in vector form? Again, the force which is exerted on the charge 1 due to the charge 2 will be given by vector F12 is equals to 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught Q1 Q2 divided by R square R12 cap. Here R12 cap represents what? It represents the unit vector which will give the direction of the force which is exerted on this charge Q1. Similarly, the force which is exerted on this charge 2 due to the charge 1 is given by the equation vector F21 is equals to 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught Q1 Q2 divided by R square R21 cap. What is R21 cap here? Here R21 cap is the unit vector which gives the direction of the force which is exerted on this charge 2, right? But the magnitude of these two charges, the product of the magnitude of these two charges will be obviously less than 0, right? Since one is negative and one is positive, so the product of these two charges will be less than 0. Then we can also say that the nature of force between these two charges will be the force of attraction. In this case as well, you can see if you substitute the value of this R21 cap and replace it with of minus R12, since both the direction of the exertion of forces will be in opposite direction, therefore F12 vector will be equal to minus F21 vector. In this case also, you can see the Newton's third law of motion holds good. Okay, so what might be the significance of this vector form? Studying vector form of Coulomb's law, one is obviously the Coulomb's law agrees with that of Newton's second law of motion. And one more thing is, you can observe the force which is acting between these two charges, point charges, will act always along the line joining between these two charges, right? Which means the force of attraction or repulsion which we observe between these two charges is a central force. These can be the significance of studying the Coulomb's law in vector form. And what might be the limitation of this Coulomb's law? You can see in these examples, I have considered these point charges in vacuum. Okay, only when the charges are held in vacuum, then we can apply the Coulomb's law, right? But what about the other cases if the charges are in other medium? That you will study later in the upcoming chapters. But for now, just assume that the limitation of the Coulomb's law is that though the charges which we study, the point charges which we are studying should be held in vacuum. Let's define the unit of electric charge using Coulomb's law. Unit of charge is of course 1 Coulomb, right? So according to Coulomb's law, force is equals to 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught Q1 Q2 divided by R square. In the SI system, if the force which is acting between Q1 and Q2, if we assume that those charges are held in vacuum and the distance of separation between them is 1 meter and the magnitude of both the charges is 1, right? Then the force will just replace the value of this 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught. Just you can see it in this equation. When we replace the value of 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught, that is 9 into 10 to the power of 9, and Q1, Q2 takes the value of 1 and the distance of separation is also 1 meter, then force will be simply equal to 9 into 10 to the power of 9 Newton, right? So looking at this equation and this condition, you can define 1 coulomb as it is that charge when placed in vacuum or air at a distance of 1 meter from the same charge of the same magnitude, then it repels a force of magnitude 9 into 10 to the power of 9 Newton. Okay, this is how you can define 1 coulomb or unit of electric charge. One more important term which we can define in terms of electrostatic force of Coulomb's law is relative permittivity or dielectric constant. Now, how do we define this relative permittivity? Say suppose if we consider the force between any 2 point charges which are held in some medium, right? So that force is given by this equation, equation number 1. The force in medium is equals to 1 by 4 pi epsilon Q1 Q2 divided by R square. You can observe here this epsilon is the permittivity of the medium. Fine. Similarly, if I consider the point charges which are held in vacuum, then the force which will be acting on those charges will be given by this equation number 2, right? In equation 2, you can observe the epsilon has been replaced by epsilon naught, right? So this is the permittivity of the free space or absolute permittivity of the free space or vacuum. Okay. Now dividing these two equations, equation 2 divided by equation 1, we get the force experienced in vacuum will be divided by the force experienced in medium. So dividing these two equations, all the terms will get cancelled. So remaining terms are epsilon divided by epsilon naught. So this ratio, the whole ratio epsilon divided by epsilon naught can be replaced by epsilon r, and which is called as relative permittivity. So the ratio of the absolute permittivity of the medium to the absolute permittivity of the free space is nothing but the relative permittivity, or we can also term it as dielectric constant, or sometimes it is called as specific inductive capacity or dielectric coefficient. If we have to define it, how we can define the dielectric constant or relative permittivity can be defined as it is the ratio of the electrostatic force between two charges separated by a certain distance in vacuum to the force which is experienced by the two charges which are held in certain medium, right? So this is how you can define relative permittivity. It's an important term you should remember. So far we discussed about the forces which will be acting between 2 point charges, right? We tried to find out the force which is acting between only two charges. What if there are many number of charges, and how to calculate the force between many number of charges, right? In that case, we will be using this principle of superposition. Now, what is according to principle of superposition? According to it states that whenever there are many number of charges which are interacting, then the total force on a particular given charge will be the vector sum of the forces which is exerted by the other individual charges which is present in the system, right? Say for example, in this case, there are many number of charges Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4 and Q5, right? If I consider the force which is acting on the charge Q1, it will simply the vector sum of all the forces which is exerted by the other charges. The force due to Q2, that is F12, plus the force due to Q3, that is F13, plus the force due to the fourth charge Q4, that is F14, plus the force due to the fifth charge, that is F15. So the total force which is exerted on this Q1 charge will be the vector sum of all the other individual charges, right? The one thing which you should remember is, in this system of charges, the force acting between any two charges will not be disturbed, or it will not be affected by the presence of other charges. Say for example, the force between Q1 and Q2 is pi Newton. So this pi Newton will not get affected due to the force which is due to Q4 or Q5 or Q3. Fine. Say suppose if the force between Q1 and Q4 is 10 Newton. Okay. So this force between Q1 and Q4 will not get affected due to the presence of Q2, Q3 and Q5. Okay. But the net force which is acting on Q1 will be, obviously, it is simply the vector sum of all the forces which are exerted. Say for example, this 5 Newton due to Q2, this 10 Newton due to Q4. Similarly, say 5 Newton from Q5 and 6 Newton from Q3. All the vector sum of all these quantities will be considered when it is exerted on this particular one charge. Okay. Here we have to consider the vectors. For an example, I just mentioned the magnitudes of the forces, that is 5 Newton, 10 Newton. But in case of practically when we are applying, you should always consider that the force exerted on one charge due to the multiple charges will be the vector sum of those individual forces. Fine. So this is regarding the superposition principle. Hope you understood this. In today's class, we learned regarding conductors and insulators, and we learned different methods of charging. There are particularly 3 different types of charging, right? One is charging by friction, charging by conduction, and charging by induction. And then we discussed about Coulomb's law. According to that law, the force of attraction or repulsion, electrostatic force of attraction or repulsion between any 2 point charges is directly proportional to the magnitude of those 2 charges and inversely proportional to the square of the distance between them, right? And we also saw the Coulomb's law in vector form. We learned about the significance of Coulomb's law in vector form, and we also defined the unit of electric charge in terms of Coulomb's law, and we also defined relative permittivity. And at the end of the session, we learned about principle of superposition, which can be used to know the force between many number of charges. Say if there are multiple charges in a system, then how the force will be exerted, or what will be the value of that force, that can be predicted by the usage of principle of. Hope you understood this class. See you in the next class. Till then, take care.